He's back. Tahaad Pettiford is returning to Auburn basketball for next season, but is he already the best player in college basketball? Welcome on into the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. I'm your host, Mike Z, and thank you so much for making us your first listen of every day, joining me as he does every single week, albeit not on Tuesday this week. My good friend Kyle Rush, back from exile, a little exile we like to call the friend's wedding, but ready to talk Auburn sports. On today's show, we're going to talk about Tahaad Pettiford and his decision to return to the Plains for year two under Bruce Pearl, and about what his ceiling is in 2025. Let's jump right in. And Kyle, we watched a lot of basketball together, my friend, and I can tell you, in watching the reports and seeing how he was performing at the Combine, a lot of Auburn fans were convinced that he was out of here, that this was a foregone conclusion. But we've talked about repeatedly on this show that NIL has opened the door for these players to return to college. As a matter of fact, I would say if NIL existed at the time, Sharif Cooper probably returns to Auburn. Bruce Pearl is no longer losing his most talented player, which will also be his best player in 2025. Talk to me about Tahaad Pettiford. This is huge for Auburn basketball.
Man, just driving back from the mountains and being exiled from Wi-Fi and service, and then that's some of the big news that hits you when you come back into civilization. What an epic way to get back into the real world. Look, I'm like you. I wasn't necessarily concerned until he dropped like 20 points in that scrimmage and didn't turn the ball over and had some assists and looked really good. And I was like, okay, well, look, now maybe there's a chance you lose this guy. But at the end of the day, look, he's always going to be, I think, he's electric. Don't get me wrong. He's going to be one of the better players on the court every time he steps on. But like the measurables are the measurables. In the NBA, those point guards there's some dudes that are just they're creative players. They're freaks. There's only so much that a 6-foot guard can do in the NBA. Now, I think he can get there, but this is the perfect situation for him. He gets to go. He performed in front of as many possible teams as he could, all the way up until I think he worked out with the Hawks like right before his announcement. Like, take it to the limit. Go see as many people as you can. Get in front of as many people as you can. But at the end of the day, the move is to come back to college, not being off the bench guy. Now you're the guy, and he could be as big as you can imagine as far as expectations go. He's got the game. He's got the game on offense to just completely dominate anybody we go up against, and it's hard to remember a player from at the guard position, especially point guard. I guess you got to go all the way back to Jared to where you really feel like somebody can just completely take over a game. You saw him do it in the NCAA tournament. At the highest level, I mean, he's everything that you want out of a Bruce Pearl point guard.
Talk about the process here. Every year you have a player like this, they're going to get calls. They're going to be people in their ear telling them to go pro. As we mentioned, NIL has changed the game. You now have the opportunity to return to school and not give up NBA money or go play in a D league and get lost on a roster somewhere. If you're Tahaad Pettiford, you make this decision to come back, but it involves having to turn down offers, having to wade through all the voices in your ear when you're trying to make the best decision for you. If you're Auburn and you're Bruce Pearl, number one, you've created an environment that players want to return to. But I think the taste of the Final Four, that feeling of unfinished business probably stuck with him some when he made this decision and thinking, hey, let's run it back. Bruce is my guy. And he got the advantage of getting to see what kind of team they were going to put around him for this year. Not a single player returning from the Final Four run last year. That's almost impressive.
it's wild to think about that Auburn's considered a top 10 team going into next season, and you only bring back one player. But you mentioned something very interesting. You talked about, money and the NBA draft and things like that. If you actually look at like slot values for draft picks, I mean, Tahaad's going to make the same amount of money that probably the 25th pick in the draft is going to make. And the thing is, like, that's guaranteed. It's not guaranteed that he's going to get drafted, 25th to 30th. Like, their teams can say all they want to say, but like at the end of the day, like they can't guarantee it because it's impossible. Like, what if the right person falls in their play? Like, they could pick a different person, and you've seen it in the NFL draft where if like one person goes that's unexpected, it sends a chain reaction to where it completely sends the rest of the draft into chaos. Like, the only guaranteed thing that Tahaad has, to me, I mean, and obviously to him too, is Auburn basketball next year. He's guaranteed to make a very substantial amount of money that, some of the, back into the first round NBA draft picks will hope to sign for their first year. So NIL has really changed the game. You talked about Sharif, like he was 2 years late, 2 years too late. And he probably would not be, he probably would have stayed here as long as he possibly could. So it's awesome. And that Auburn gets a chance to have another go with a kid like this because he's just so incredibly talented. And like, he was easily going to be, again, a back half of the first, early part of the second round draft, but it just wasn't guaranteed. And again, the only thing that was guaranteed was Auburn. And man, boy, we're lucky. We're so lucky to get to see this kid play another year in orange and blue.
How good is the team around him going to be this year? That's something that we'll talk about here right after a quick word from the Vibe Vault. This is the Auburn Express.
This episode of the Auburn Express is brought to you by our friends at the Vibe Vault. You can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. That's right across the street from the Chattahoochee Valley Community College, next to Renfro's Supermarket and Marco's Pizza. The Vibe Vault. If you're in the Columbus, Phoenix City area, you're looking to get fresh for the weekend. Get fresh for the weekend with the Vibe Vault. Not just barbers, lifestyle consultants.
How good is the team around Tahaad Pettiford in 2025? Look, we all know they went out and added Kean Hall from UCF. So you bring in the Big 12's leading scorer. They've gone out and got a number of pieces to put around him. This is going to be a really, really good team. So as we mentioned earlier in the segment, not a single player returning other than Tahaad Pettiford from that Final Four run. But Auburn basketball is now in a place where the analysts, the pundits, everybody who analyzes this is starting to give Bruce Pearl the benefit of the doubt for what he's built on the Plains, that it's going to be a top 10 product here next year.
Yeah, man. And you haven't even touched on another big addition today that happened even before the Tahaad news, and that's my boy Philip Jovic. I call him Fill It Up Jovic from Serbia. He played in the same. He played in the same. He played in the same league that I think produced Nikolai Jovic, the star for the Nuggets. Really good. He's 22 years old, I believe. 20 years old, 6'9". 220, dude that scored 12 and 4 last year, shooting, close to 60% from the floor, kind of solved the whole front court equation. Now you have another 6'9" athletic guy that can play, with Keyshawn Murphy, with your Emeka Opirum, your 7-footer from JUCO. Like, he can kind of get in the mix with even Kean Hall there. Man, I'm starting to really love the makeup of this roster. There's so many different possibilities. I don't really know what the starting lineup, the starting five is going to look like.
Yeah. Well, we know that Tahaad Pettiford is going to be in it. right?
Yeah.
Last year, the true sophomore returning averaged 11.6 points per game, 2.2 rebounds, 3 assists, and shot 42% from the field. That's Tahaad Pettiford. He also averaged about 1 steal per game, and didn't turn the ball over a ton, just about 1.5 turnovers per game. I think that he's going to improve on those numbers, certainly, and we'll talk about that in the back half of the show. But you add what he was able to do with Kean Hall, who averaged just under 19 points per game in the Big 12. He will not be asked to carry the scoring load the way he did at UCF. Now, you guys know, all our listeners know, I do Locked On UCF as well. So if you want some great UCF content, please head over there. But I covered Kean Hall all year, Kyle, and I'm telling you, although his minutes may not be as heavy because UCF had whole games last year where they got 2 points from the bench. That was like a regular occurrence. And this year, he's going to be on one of the deepest teams in college basketball, but the effectiveness of the minutes he plays will be much greater at Auburn. Now, when he committed, he said he wanted to be coached by the best in the game. He says that's Bruce Pearl. I'm tending to agree with him. He's certainly one of the best in the game, but is this team potentially better than last year's team that came up just short of the championship game?
Man, they remind me so much of the team 2 years ago. The team where it was like, I think there's probably going to be a little bit of growing pains early on, and then like it's one of those teams that sort of works their way into postseason form. Versus this past year, they were just good from the beginning. Like from the opening tip, they were good. I got a question for you though, Mike, especially with the addition of Philip Jovic.
Mm-hmm.
Kean Hall to me was sort of like coined as he's probably going to be that stretch 4 guy. But with Philip being added to this roster, to me, I could be wrong, and maybe I just don't know ball. But to me, thinking about a guy that's 6'7", 240 pounds that can take it to the hole, can shoot the 3, can bang and get rebounds, and is a really good ball handler, playing the 3 sometime this year, the wing, to me is a matchup nightmare. That is almost a blessing, a huge blessing to me for Kean Hall. If Philip's game can translate to the SEC, to me, him being able to play the 3 instead of having to play 4 and bounce around, if he could play the 3 a little bit more, my gracious, man, can you imagine matching up with that guy?
Yeah, I think Kean Hall has that flexibility that you're talking about to be able to play multiple positions and really be a matchup nightmare, to be able to shoot, like you said, at his size with his height and length. Super athletic guy. And you and I both know the bane of Auburn basketball the last few years prior to this past season has been shooting. Finding shooting regularly from the perimeter.
I love the 3 ball, man.
Right. Yeah. It's, and Tahaad Pettiford gives you that. Kean Hall gives you that. They had to reload with shooters. Now, you lost Chad Baker-Mazara, who hit some big shots here. I don't think that his production is irreplaceable. You lost Dylan Cardwell, who one of the best big men in college basketball, but he didn't give you much from a scoring standpoint as a big man. That was the downside to Dylan on the court, where he could, he was good for an oop, but couldn't really create his own shot. Didn't particularly play well with his back to the basket. He could rebound with the best of them, but just offensively, you just didn't get a lot with Dylan. And I think that this team does have the potential to be a little bit better. Now, Johni Broome, when he decided he was going to add a 3-point shot to his game, he gave Auburn so much flexibility. He became a matchup nightmare, drawing the other team's big man out of the paint and allowing
space,
just it's all space, right? So this potentially is a better team. To answer your question, I just think that Kean Hall gives you so much flexibility, and when you add another piece like Philip, you get something potentially very special. Look, Bruce Pearl has the talent, and on the back half of his career, Kyle, he's not looking for a 3-year project. He needs players now that he can win with now. So give him the money, get out of his way and let him find out how to make these pieces gel together. And, before we talk about what Tahaad's ceiling is at, I want to ask you this question. Could this team potentially be a better fit together than last year's team? They all bought into a role last year, but do you see these pieces maybe fitting together a little better?
That's a really good question. And I'm going to answer yes. And this is why. I don't think Janai Broome is I know this is going to sound crazy when I say this.
Okay.
But
all right.
I don't
think
Janai Broome is the ideal big man for what Bruce wants to do. I don't think it's natural for a Bruce offense to feed it into a big guy. I just don't think that's ever been, if you look at all of his teams, it's never been natural. Now he made it work and they found a way to make it be elite, but I don't think that's really what he wants to do. I don't think it's like, let's get in a half court. Let's dump it into the big guy and let him get an ISO and go to the basket. I don't think that's what he's done. It's always been guards, shooting threes, playing defense, have some athletic bigs. I think this team's going to look a lot like your teams with Anthony McLemore as your big, or even Austin Wiley, a guy that's not necessarily just, an athletic freak, but he's going to play good defense. Keyshawn Murphy's going to play good defense. He's going to clean up the boards. He's going to score inside. And then you're going to have guys like Tahaad creating space, your Jared Harper-esque type player, maybe a little bit more athletic. And then you're going to have other guys like, Bashir coming off the bench at 6'7" that can shoot threes. You're going to have Kean Hall that can play the 3 and the 4 and be like a flex type player. You're going to have Kevin Overton, who's got a ton of experience, who could be, your slasher, get to the basket guy. Like, to me, this really models more of the pre-Broome teams, than it does the past couple of years. I don't know. I could be wrong. It could just be I'm booging. It could be that I'm trying to cope with the losing of Broome, but I feel like this is more of along the lines of a traditional Bruce Pearl team.
Yeah, look, I'll tell you, along what is part of a traditional Bruce Pearl team is 5 stars, it seems, the last few years. And that 5-star is Tahaad Pettiford. What is his ceiling in 2025? We'll talk about that next on the Auburn Express. A quick word from our friends at, again, the Vibe Vault. If you're in the Phoenix City, Columbus area and you're looking to get fresh for the weekend, visit our friends at the Vibe Vault. You can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. That's the Vibe Vault, not just barbers, lifestyle consultants. Also, our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com and use code RAPPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. I can tell you, they've got these scented candles that really help me sleep. And they've got these great sleep gummies and just anything that you need to help you relax. The Rogue Shop has you covered. Again, visit them at rogueshop.com and use code RAPPORT for 15% off that order. Last, certainly not least, our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. Spring is here. Summer is on the way. You want to be outside with your family, making memories or just staying in shape. Work out, grill out, chill out with Golden's Cast Iron. Kyle, let's jump back in here. I mentioned 11.6 points per game for Tahaad Pettiford. 2 rebounds, 3 assists. He shot 42%. I think that he is going to start the season with National Player of the Year hype. He is not only Auburn's best returning player, but he is potentially the best returning player in all of college basketball. He's a household name at this point. Everybody knows who Tahaad Pettiford is. Turn on your Instagram reels. Turn on TikTok. There are Tahaad Pettiford edits everywhere. They're dropping highlights. The Jersey kid is making a splash nationally right now. I think he averages somewhere between 17 to 20 points per game, in that range where you saw Janai Broome and Cooper Flagg, if not more. The ceiling for him is National Player of the Year in my book, and nobody's going to be able to convince me otherwise.
I'm certainly not going to fight you. 20 points a game, I think, is something. I mean, he only played 22 minutes last year, and he scored 12 points a game last year. So just that continuity and continuing to sort of get all those reps I think he's going to be in the running for being, name the award, SEC Player of the Year, whatever, Player of the Year. He's going to have all the opportunities to do that. And I don't see anything that makes me think that's not going to be a part of the conversation. Like I don't see anything that's going to make me think that is not going to be, a possibility for next year. Typically the sophomore jump from freshman to sophomore is incredible. And he's just going to get that much more. And think about all the experience he got at the combine, at that competition level, getting those workouts. Like, that's not talked about enough. Like all the different pro teams that he worked out about, and probably the pointers and the tips that he picked up. And then you couple it in with all of the pieces that Bruce has surrounded him with. And it's a different group from just different people in general. And then it's a different group as far as a makeup goes. I think it's just going to be, I don't know, man. I think he could be maybe even more electric than he would be if you took him and put him on the exact same team the next year. I think this could be an even better situation for him.
Yeah, I agree. Look, let's talk about the guy who did win National Player of the Year last year, Cooper Flagg, 19.2 points per game, 7.5 rebounds, 4 assists. He shot 48% from the field, but that last statistic, I think, is going to be the measuring stick for Tahaad Pettiford. If he can hit close to 50% from the field, he's going to be a shoo-in for National Player of the Year. 42% your freshman year is great. And Bruce Pearl showed an incredible amount of trust in him in big moments to go out and create his shot or pick his shot or create shots for his teammates. And he stepped up a lot last year. Now, he had some scoring droughts here or there, but as the season went along, we saw the trust in Tahaad Pettiford only go up. And this year, he's going to carry the flag for the culture of the team as the only returning player and the guy that Bruce Pearl looks to say, hey, this is Auburn basketball, and this is how we do it.
I love it, man. I love everything. What better? I mean, I can't even think of a better thing to talk about in basketball at the end of May than, Tahaad Pettiford coming back and being a part of this team and then completing this roster. And finally, even though it was like one of those things you knew was probably going to happen, finally getting the I'm back graphics and all that. I mean, it's just – this is what you've come to expect with Bruce Pearl at Auburn, and this basketball roster is going to be fun and competitive again, and you're going to have an unbelievable out-of-conference schedule. You kick it off with you play Houston early, then you got to turn around and play Purdue, and then you go to Vegas. So you're going to get Todd on a big stage almost, seemingly every other night in the preseason, and then you hit the conference play. It's going to be a ton of fun, man.
It's going to be so much fun. It's definitely going to be so much fun. Look, the expectations for Auburn basketball are not going down under Bruce Pearl. They're only going up. You've got to reload and make another run at this thing here. Auburn came up just short in San Antonio. I was there. Look, Walter Clayton Jr. is a special player. I think Tahaad Pettiford has the ability to be to Auburn what Walter Clayton Jr. was to Florida last year. So, and mind you, talking about senior. Talking about senior on Walter Clayton that did that versus a true sophomore in Tahaad Pettiford.
If you get anywhere near that, you're set. If you can get anywhere near Walter Clayton production out of Tahaad, you're set. You're in a really, really good spot.
Kyle, I hate myself for it, but in San Antonio, I was on the baseline when Florida was warming up. I took a picture of Walter Clayton Jr. and I put a caption on Twitter that said, "This man has to be stopped." Spoiler alert, Auburn did not stop him. 34 points on 11 of 18
nobody
shooting. He absolutely shredded Auburn in that game that they eventually lost 79-73. But, ultimately you need shot makers. You need guys who are just guys and can go out and do the types of things that Walton Clayton did. That's Tahaad Pettiford. I think that they thought that he's got that dog in him too. He's got all the dog in him that Aiden Holloway didn't have. Aiden said, "Oh, Bruce sold me a bill of dreams and all this, whatever he said." I remember watching Tahaad Pettiford early last season in Neville Arena, and thinking, wow, he looks really comfortable out there for a true freshman, and B-Matt from AuburnSports.com was sitting next to me. He was like, yeah, he's for real.
Completely
Aiden
different.
never looked comfortable. He never looked comfortable. Now he improved this year, I think, but as a role player and not the guy.
No, he's a 5'10" set shooter. Like that's just what Aiden is. And Tahaad is hey, give me the ball and I'm about to make a highlight. Like, give me the ball, I'm going to go to the hole and make a highlight. I mean, he's been doing that ever since he was in AAU, when one of his best highlights is dunking on Aiden.
Yeah,
so he's
right.
He's incredible. He's incredible, and Auburn gets him for another year.
Look, give me the ball and make me let me make a highlight. Let's put that on a T-shirt. We're making highlights here at the War Rapport every single week with my guy Kyle Rush. Kyle, you know the drill. Before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
Hey, sign up for the barnauburn.com, the message board. Mike G drops in there every now and then. Hey, if you wanted to be up to date on the basketball stuff, we were killing it. We were killing it on Tahaad's recruitment, not recruitment, but his progression through workouts and where he was in the whole decision process. We were ahead of the game, I feel like, on Philip Jovic. It's a great place to be, great conversations, and a great community as well.
Guys, that's it for another great edition of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Rapport. If you're watching this and you want to support the work we're doing, do us a favor, smash that super thanks button. Show us some love there in the comments. We'll be at SEC Media Days all week, dropping content for you. My guy Kyle is going to be there as well. But look, come circle back around with us tomorrow on the Auburn Express. And if you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Rapport on every social media platform. TW Rapport on TikTok. Signing off, and as always, War Eagle.